This is the Budget Minded Traveler Podcast, episode 35.
Welcome to the Budget Minded Traveler Podcast, your source for the tips and tactics that will inspire and equip you to travel the world. And the best part, it won't break your bank. And now, the Budget Minded Traveler herself and your host, Jackie IRL.
We're so grateful to Osprey Packs for partnering with us and supporting the podcast, so please stay tuned for more about them later on. I have an opportunity for you to join me in real life for some real travel. Here's the latest Jump Adventures update. We are going to Greece for a bike and boat island hopping adventure this May 9th to 16th, 2025, and we still have space left. Check out jumpadventures.com to learn more and book now. We're going to have a yacht all to ourselves with ensuite cabins on board, so you get to sleep in the same bed every night as we start in Athens and make our way west toward the island of Corfu. You'll have your own bike for the week, e-bike if you want one, for cycling the islands as we go, in between meals crafted by our private chef on board, and all the relaxing you want to do on the top deck under the Mediterranean sun. These bike and boat adventures are our most carefree and relaxed trips. All you have to do is say yes and show up, and there's still space. Head over to jumpadventures.com to grab your spot now, and we'll see you there. All right, welcome to episode 35 of the Budget Minded Traveler Podcast. Thanks for tuning in today. We have a great interview for you guys today. But before we get into that, just a couple of things. First of all, if you were listening last week, you heard me mention the podcast awards. The nomination period is extended to February 6th. So if you haven't nominated your favorite podcasts, wink, wink, yet, you still have time to do that. Go to podcastawards.com, and there is a travel category if you want to nominate the Budget Minded Traveler for Best Travel Podcast, and I would be super honored if you guys would do that for me, and I will let you know if I get in, and then we can start voting. But right now it's just nominations, and if you want to do that, podcastawards.com, and thank you in advance. And second, we're actually trying something new today. This is, well, and by we I guess I mean I, but this is pretty cool. So for the interview, I actually recorded it on video as well. So there is a video clip that goes with this episode. It's not the entire length of the episode. It's glimpses of it, just 5 minutes. But if you want to see what it looks like for me to do an interview, you can watch the video. It's on the show notes page at thebudgetmindedtraveler.com/35. And on that note, you may hear some things that you wouldn't normally hear. She introduces her dog a couple of times. It's because we were on video. And so check out the video so you can meet Carl because he's adorable. And that might explain some of the other things that you might hear. So, all right. So today we have Paula Froelich, who happens to be my friend and the editor-in-chief of Yahoo Travel. She is also the New York Times bestselling author of the novel Mercury in Retrograde. She was a gossip columnist at the New York Post gossip column Page 6 for 10 years. So you may have heard about her before. She also has a show on Yahoo Travel called Abroad, which you should definitely check out. But we brought Paula on today to basically talk about her journey as a woman in travel, and basically she's going to tell us about how she found herself kind of stuck in a rut and not doing the things she wanted to do, and how she got back to what matters, which I think we can all relate to. And so this is Paula's story, and her muse was travel. So we'll go ahead and get into the interview now. Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm happy to say we have the one and only Paula Froelich on the line with us today. And as you have heard, I've already said that Paula is the head honcho over at Yahoo Travel. And so, Paula, thank you so much for agreeing to come on the show today. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
I'm surprised. What?
Also, by the way, special guest.
Paula brought her dog.
She's the Yahoo Travel mascot.
So you must be at home right now?
No, I'm actually in the office.
You're in the office. Okay.
Yeah, big windows, unfortunately, are not in my house. I live in New York, so.
Gotcha. So you are in New York at the moment. I was going to ask you because I'm sure you've been all over the world and back, like within the last week. So
Actually, well, January was a little slow for me.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, I only went to San Moritz, Switzerland, and then I went to a conference in Salt Lake City.
Hmm.
And I think that's all I did.
Why would you do
Yeah,
that to
no,
yourself?
I know. It's so crazy balls, right? um, don't worry, I'm making up for it in February.
So where are
I'm
you
going.
going next?
I am going to Seattle tomorrow, just for a quickie, and then I go to England for a week in February. Which, yay, great idea. And then I'm going to Malawi and Zambia at the end of the month.
Wow.
Yeah,
That sounds
super
amazing.
stoked. Oh, I'm excited.
Yep. Probably not a bad time to get out of New York either, huh?
No.
No, I
Oops,
bet not.
sorry. See you February in New York. I'm going to Malawi and Zambia.
Yeah,
Goodbye.
kidding.
Uh, mm.
So I want to, okay, before we go back in time though, because I actually really wanted to know, like, where you came from and how you got into traveling and everything in the first place. But why don't you tell us a little about your life right now? I mean, we know you travel a lot, but tell us about, Yahoo Travel and what you do there and your show, because people might not know.
Totally. Well, I'm the editor-in-chief of Yahoo Travel, and I also do a show called Abroad, which is it's like a female adventure travel show. It's we go to some places that you think you might know. Like I was just in Miami, but we find like the dive restaurants that all the locals know, but that you don't know, and we have to tell you where they are and show you because otherwise you're never going to find them. Or I went to Afghanistan skiing, and we have some shows from there, and it's just about like women do this stuff, and a lot of
Yeah.
people, it's really super frustrating because, and especially in major media, and I was told for years, women don't do this, women don't do this, and I was like, dude, I travel all the time and all I see are women.
Hmm.
And then I also got, well, you know what, women need a buddy, because you need a buddy for a buddy show. Women can't carry a show on their own. I actually heard that as well. And I was like,
Wow.
really, dude? All right, well, women do
Thanks
travel
for the challenge.
solo.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, 73% of women in the States, according to Booking.com, are going to travel solo in 2015. 66% of women traveled solo last year. And so it's just kind of like, basically, I got frustrated. I was out there talking to people and trying to get something going, and nobody would give me the time of day, so I went out and did it myself.
Hmm.
With the help of Yahoo, obviously. But Yahoo was great, and they liked it. I got the job because I started a website called Abroad around this time last year.
Hmm.
And in three and a half weeks, I got 55,000 uniques, which is
Wow.
kind of insane. And I was like, and with no publicity, I just put it out on social. And I was like,
Social
huh.
media, right?
Mm-hmm.
For those who aren't so technically inclined.
Yeah. Although,
It's not a new platform, just social media in general.
social.com. Um, and it did really well. And then I also got really fed up because I had taken another meeting where someone was trying to tell me what was going on, what women didn't do and what the landscape was like. And so I got pissed off, and I did my research, and I hired an infographic person, and I did an infographic on just where the money was coming from. FYI, women are responsible for 85% of travel decisions.
Wow.
And where it was coming from, who was actually doing the traveling. And you get things like the average adventure traveler is a 47-year-old woman, not a 27-year-old dude in a Red Bull commercial,
Mm-hmm.
and you're like, all right, that's cool. So I put up my own stats and put that out. Then I used that to do a piece in Newsweek where I was like, all right, like the ignored demographic.
Yeah.
And
The people who are actually doing something, the ignored demographic.
yeah, the people are actually doing something. The people have the money and the time and the interest in doing things, and they're being super ignored. We are ignored, and it's annoying. So, sorry, my dog is getting a little restless.
I love it.
They,
That's okay.
but it was, so that was my ethos. And then I met Yahoo, and they were like, "We like you," and I said, "I like you too."
Cool.
Okay.
Awesome. So you travel a lot. Obviously, you just gave us your travel itinerary for February, but we know it wasn't always like this. So how did you even get into traveling in the first place? What inspired you, and how old were you?
Well, I was born in England, and then my family briefly lived in Saudi Arabia, and then I grew up mostly in Ohio and Kentucky. And I went to college. but I always grew up with stories. And then my mother was also, she was a first, second, and third grade teacher. So there were a lot of books in the house, but not just books. Like all of our fairy tales were like the Italo Calvino fairy tales, you know, or we read all of the Scheherazade stories. And so it makes you, you know, it's your imagination goes crazy. And so I always wanted to see those places. And also I grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio. And while I love it now, it was one of those anywhere but here kind of places, you know, growing up. So it was just one of those things. And I went to college, and then I went to England. And after England, because I have a British passport because I was born there. And
You're so lucky for that.
I used to be until Tony Blair ruined it for all the Brits, pretty much.
Really?
Well, yeah, it used to be you could travel all over the world and everyone liked the Brits. And ever since Tony Blair, not so much.
Oh, yeah, but you've still got the passport. I mean, that's so golden in Europe. I mean, wow, yeah. I would love to have the
you're
British
right.
passport.
I can work all over Europe. I was just thinking in my mind, like, you know, you used to be able to travel on a British passport places that you couldn't go on an American passport, you know? So anyway, the point is I went after England, I didn't want to go home. I didn't know what else to do. So I had $1,500 and I went to India with my best friend and we just stayed till the money went out around 6 months later.
Wow.
So it was super dirt cheap and it was amazing and I loved it. And I remember just being like, oh, and they came and I eventually moved to New York. And I got a job and I did like interest rate swaps and over-the-counter derivatives for institutional investor and Dow Jones. And then I ended up being a gossip columnist because I met someone who knew someone. And this was kind of the problem with my career is that I was in journalism, but everything I'd been in, I just kind of lucked into. I never specifically said, I want this, boom, let's do this, you know?
Yeah.
So I fell into being a gossip columnist and it was all right for a couple of years, but it was also golden handcuffs. You know, you start doing TV, you start making money, you can go anywhere. You can just call up, hey, I want to come into this place tonight. I want to go here, you know. But it eventually, I became really miserable. And for a lot of reasons, there was a lot of stuff going on. I've written about it. But I just became miserable. And I was like, this is not what I want to do with the rest of my life. You know, I just don't want to do this. And so I quit. And I spent the next 4.5 years as a freelancer. And the first 3 months were really difficult because I was just like shell-shocked. I had no idea. I was like, what the hell am I going to do? You know? And finally, one day I got sick of myself. And I was like, you know what? Done. When was the last time you were cool? Because I know you're cool. You're just not cool right now. But I know that you're cool inside. And when was the last time that you were cool? And when was the last time that you felt good about yourself? When was the last time you really... And I just thought of India. And I was like, all right, let's go travel a little bit.
Oh, that's
and
so awesome.
And I have Carl. So I couldn't go for very long spurts, which is good. Because then it kept me a little bit grounded. But
and Carl's the dog, for those of you who might have missed that. Her dog, who's sitting on her lap right now. If you're only listening to this, we are doing this on video. So
yeah,
he's so cute.
And he's like a canine unicorn. He's like the most magical guy ever.
I totally get that. I have a dog too. He's a little bit bigger than Carl. He's about 100 pounds. As opposed to Carl's probably 10 pounds, but...
You know what, though? I love big dogs. I just don't like big poops.
Well, that's one way to...
Especially in New York, right?
Yeah, well, I would say in New York...
Different. You can just be like, go, run, buddy, take a dookie. And
you don't want to have a big dog in New York. No way. Like, we live in Montana, and it's, like, perfect for him. But you know, it's really hard to travel with a dog. What do you do with him? Because you travel so much. I mean, it's not like... You can't just give him up, you know, obviously you want him at home, but you travel so often. What do you do? We'll come right back to that. Let's take a moment now to thank our wonderful show sponsors. Osprey is the market leader in technical outdoor, travel, and everyday packs. And I've personally used Osprey packs since 2015. My favorites are the Fairview Trek 50 for multi-day hikes, the Cirrus 24 for day hikes, the Transporter Rolling Duffel 60, which is my trusty check luggage for faraway adventures, and of course, the countless packing cubes I use to organize everything that goes in them. We are proud to support each other on the podcast and beyond. We love getting outside, and we want to see more people outdoors. So find out more and join us at osprey.com.
Well, it's a little bit of a unique situation. During the 4.5 years when I quit my job, I got to know my neighbors, and by neighbors, I mean everyone on my street. And so my block is bookended by a church and a convent. And I actually had somebody once call me up who was watching Carl, and she was really upset. And I was like, what's going on? And she was like, I just got accosted by 2 priests on your street. And I was like, what are you talking about? And apparently they saw her walking Carl, and they go, excuse me, is that call Froelich? Is that call? And she was like, yeah, it is. And they're like, where's Paula? Does Paula know that you're walking Carl? Are you allowed to walk Carl? Wait, what is going on here? And she was like, oh my God, But it's great. Like,
awesome.
Everyone looks out for it,
Yeah.
And then I have one neighbor on my street who's a true angel, this woman named Deb, and she's got 2 dogs. And I needed someone to watch my dogs because dog watching in New York is insanely expensive. And I wouldn't have this job without Deb. And, I just said that my ex-boyfriend was like, not going to watch Carl anymore. And I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, I've got this gig. And she was like, I'll take him. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I don't have any money. And she was like, I don't care. I love your dog. Mm-hmm. So she takes him. Then she had a friend who was just going through a rough part in his life. And so he sleeps on her couch. And now when I go for long times, he comes over and sleeps at my place. So I always joke that a homeless guy watches my dog. But he does.
I have seen a picture that had something to do with that, and I didn't get the joke. So that makes sense now.
I pay him a stipend a month, and he watches Carl and cleans my apartment. And it all works out amazingly for me. Deb gets some quiet time, and this guy gets an apartment to chill out in.
I'm convinced that things do work out. You just have to kind of put yourself out there, and things work out. They totally work out.
Yeah.
When you quit your job, when you first quit, did you have a plan, or did you just screw it and leave your job because you were unhappy?
I had no plan. In fact, I was in the middle of pretty much a complete nervous breakdown. My body broke down. The last year I was at my job, I had the flu, I think 3 times, and the bronchitis 4 times. And I also had some other health issues, and I had 3 doctors tell me to quit.
Wow. So it's time to listen. So quit your job and travel. Did you start traveling at that time too?
No, I did not, because I was in such a bad way. Mm-hmm. I literally just shut my bedroom door. If I did not have Carl, I would not have left my apartment at all for 3 months. Mm-hmm. So because I did have Carl, I had to walk him, and that got me to meet my neighbors. And then, so it was definitely, it was a rough time, but definitely led me to much better places.
And how did you start traveling again? I mean, I know you kind of decided to, but did you have money saved up? Like, how did you afford to travel?
Okay. Yeah, I did. I knew I was leaving that job 3 years before I left, and I saved every red penny. Okay. And I scrimped, I saved, I did whatever, and I saved. And by the time I got this job, I had, I think, $300 left in the bank account.
Wow.
So it was.
So that money lasted you like the whole time? Well, and through your freelance gigs, basically, right? That's pretty impressive. When you put your mind to something, that it worked for you.
100%. You don't, like the excuse of I can't afford it, or this excuse of travel as a luxury is no longer an excuse.
Oh, yeah. No, it's definitely not. I mean, that's my entire platform that I stand on. So I'm with you on that one. What about when you've been on the road? What is it about traveling that gets you? Obviously, you love it. Otherwise, you wouldn't be the editor-in-chief of Yahoo Travel.
100%. I'm actually evangelical about it, but I'm also, for many reasons, one thing I always say, and it does sound trite, and it is a trite saying, but I can't help it because it's true. There was this time in college when I was really stressed out and anxiety-ridden. I was in Emory in Atlanta, and somebody drove me to Stone Mountain, and we walked to the top of Stone Mountain, and I looked down, and it just felt like a release because Atlanta was just so small in the distance, and it was just right there. And I just felt like, oh, that thing that was just standing in front of me, breathing down my neck, is just so tiny right now, you know? And for me, that's what travel does. In order to see something clearly, often you have to get out of the situation and you have to really just look at it from all sides. But also the other thing is that in this day and age of full connectivity, and we are constantly connected and we are always, you know,
on our phones.
It's actually a lot lonelier. We are all, you know, a lot of studies have been done that we're lonelier now than we've ever been before. And to get out there and to have a minute to think, to turn things off and to turn down the music and to turn off the, you know, the headsets and just to look for a minute and be like, what do I really think about that? You know, and to actually read a book or talk to somebody next to you, you know? Like I met one of my really good friends. I was coming back from a book tour stop, and he was just wigging out. He was not happy because they had just announced that the plane was going to be delayed for 2 hours. And he was just going bonkers. And I just put my hand on his arm, and I was like, it's going to be okay. And he was like, how do you know that? I'm going to miss my connection to London. I'm going to miss my connection. I have to go to Tel Aviv and da-da-da. And I go, what airport? You were going into JFK. You flying out of it? He goes, yeah. And I go, that's a great airport to get stuck at. And randomly, I just went through the benefits of JFK, which first time I think anyone's ever done that. But, you know, I was like, whatever. And by the end of it, he was like, and they're boarding the plane. He goes, give me your ticket. And I go, what? Freak? And he was like, I'm betting you're not in first class. And I am. And I want to give you my ticket. And I go, are you sure? Why? And he goes, you just made me feel so much better. And I just want to thank you.
Oh my
he was like,
gosh.
He goes, and you look exhausted. And I fell asleep twice while talking to him, like just because I was so tired. And he was like, just get some sleep, have an ice cream sundae. And I was like, all right, no, okay, fine.
Yeah, you say yes to that.
So we went, and it turns out, I mean, he's turned into a pretty good friend of mine. We talk all the, you know, we used to talk a lot more, but, you know, life gets in the way. Mm-hmm. But, and it's just, it can make a difference. Just turn into the person next to you and being like, what's up? Or it's going to be okay, or I'll listen to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so true. You never know who you're going to meet, like, on the plane. I meet the most amazing people on planes. And there are still those days when I don't want to meet the person next to me. You know, I just want to sit and be quiet and not talk to anyone. But it's almost like whenever you want that opportunity, it's there. And you can meet somebody new or have, I don't know.
Totally. I would just say, really read someone's body language, because if they don't want to be talking to you, you best not talk to them.
Well, the earplugs, the headphones, like those are good signs. Like just stay out.
I've
for
still
now.
had people talk to me, and I'm like,
yeah. Fake that you're pausing your music and having to close your book, and
it's happened before. I've been grumpy.
I think we've all been there. I've not been given a first class seat by another passenger, though. I think that's pretty awesome. That must have made you feel pretty awesome.
I did feel pretty. I was like, oh, I love you. Thank you.
So one last question for you, because I know you're short on time, but what kind of advice would you give to people considering travel? Maybe those people who think that it's still a luxury or think that it's, you know, that they can't afford to do it. What advice would you give them?
Well, it depends, because are you talking about long-term travel, or are you talking about a vacation, or are you talking about just taking a hot minute off?
Yes.
I mean, all of it?
Yeah. Anything. I mean, sometimes all you need is to make a plan and then put it into action. You know, take a long weekend if that's what you need. I mean, I love going international, which hopefully you're not going to go for a long weekend international, because that could be a little bit of a waste of money. But for all of those, you know, what would you say?
I just think it's important to get out of the familiar. Mm-hmm. So it can be something like an hour away. It doesn't have to be a day away. You know, get out of the familiar and pretend you're on an adventure, and that will bring out all these things that I was talking about. You know, it brings out boldness, it brings out your bravery, it brings out, take a step out of the norm, and forge a new path, if only for a weekend.
Mm-hmm. It's so necessary, and sometimes I think people may need just those baby steps, even if it's only for a weekend, and then build on
Totally.
it.
And also understand that, like, American society is one of the only first world societies where they don't do something like a gap year,
Yeah.
where you're expected to go straight from high school to college to work to getting married, have kids, back to work, and then possibly at some point in the future, you might retire. And you're like, what?
And
That
then,
sounds like a really horrible gig.
Yeah, and then your health is failing and you're not as adventurous as you used to be. And this is when you're supposed to go travel.
Totally. And you're like kind of pissed off, as you should be, So it's definitely, one of those.
I think that's great advice. Thank you for that. So if people want to find you, where should they go?
Well, they should definitely check out my show, Abroad. You go on yahootravel.com or yahoo.com/travel or abroadabroad.com.
Awesome.
You pretty much can't escape me if you go to those three places.
That's right. You're kind of everywhere.
Or you could do Twitter. I'm at PFro. It's like J-Lo, but not.
PFro.
Same on Instagram. Yeah. Or my Facebook page. Facebook.com/Paula.Froelich.
Awesome. Well, congrats to you. I mean, I know it's been almost a year now, and Yahoo Travel is incredibly successful. That's so amazing. I know there was just an article recently that kind of went over your journey in Yahoo Travel, and that Yahoo Travel is now the number 2 travel website in the US.
Well, the number 2 travel website, only behind TripAdvisor, but we're the number 1 content website.
It's
travel
crazy.
content.
It's so awesome.
So TripAdvisor is user generated, and it's not necessarily like articles and whatever.
Yeah, right.
It isn't articles. What am I saying? Not necessarily.
Right.
So, we're the number 1. It's amazing. And it's just really great. It's really affirming.
Well, I can see it on you. It looks good on you.
Thank you. Even though I'm not wearing any makeup and we're coming out of a blizzard that wasn't. I was just laughing. I was like, in the Midwest, this is called a Tuesday.
Mm-hmm. No, in Montana, I know. It's there are jokes, but we won't go there. That's okay. Well, you'll be out of here before you know it. So no snow for you anyway, right?
No.
It's better that way. It's better that way.
Yeah. I'm not really a winter sports lady, even though I keep doing skiing things. I keep thinking one day I'll wake up and I'll be good at it. I'm not.
I keep thinking that one day I'll wake up and I want to do it again, and it hasn't happened either. So I'm with you. That's why we love to travel. It's okay for us to be gone in the winter. Yeah.
Totally.
I know.
I'm like, oh, look, it's snowing. Bye.
Yeah.
Oh.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been fun talking to you.
Thanks for having me.
And,
I appreciate it. Anytime.
Yeah. Congrats with all your successes, and we'll chat with you again soon.
Thank you.
All right. I hope you guys enjoyed that interview with Paula Froelich from Yahoo Travel. I think that, we can probably all find some inspiration in the fact that we've all at one time or another, done something that we didn't want to be doing, and basically getting back to what does inspire us. In my case, it's travel as well. In your case, it's probably travel as well, and if it takes baby steps to get there, then start putting those baby steps into action, and get there. Even if it means that you have to travel solo. I mean, like Paula said, a lot of women especially are going to travel solo this year. And, it's not a good enough excuse not to go. I mean, I've been there. I've done the solo travel, and you can do it too, if that's what it takes to make it happen. So I hope that you guys can, be inspired by this and figure out how you can make it happen. And one last reminder, the notes from this page where you can find Paula, all of the links and all of that are going to be on the budgetmindedtraveler.com/35 for episode 35. That's the show notes page. And you can watch the video there, 5-minute video, to see what Paula looks like and see us chatting with each other on Skype. And that's it for today. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Check out the budgetmindedtraveler.com/35 for notes and the video, and nominate me for the podcast awards, please and thank you. See you guys next time.